Hello, my guest today is Frank Supovitz. Frank founded the company Fast Traffic Events in New York City in 2014. And prior to that, Frank has had an extensive background in the world of live events. He was a senior executive at the National Hockey League, a senior executive at the National Football League in the United States. He's been responsible for producing some of the most iconic events of our generation. And most recently, he's written a new book that follows his previous three books, and it's entitled What to Do When Things Go Wrong. And because we're talking about faith and about the current world situation this week on our Knowledge is Power episode, I was curious, Frank, as a result of COVID-19, what are some of the ways that we all need to increase our knowledge, not just about events, but about how we live in this new, or I call it the new abnormal?
Yes, and COVID-19 has struck all of us, if not on a physical level for ourselves and our families, but on a business level, on a social level. You know, the fact of the matter is humans are social beings. They want to be together. We're pre-wired to find the company of others gratifying, satisfying, and fulfilling. The fact of COVID-19 right now really validates some of the thinking in the book, which talked about the notion that problems don't follow patterns, but solutions often do, and that's where we are today. We all have to create for ourselves in our personal and business lives, contingencies, whether we were planning a wedding or a family gathering or a new business launch or even an event, as I do. The solutions to those things and how you're going to grapple with the problems that are presented to you are actually non-specific. It's general. For example, how could you see COVID-19 taking on and battering the world the way it has? Unless you're an epidemiologist, few of us would have been able to do that. What we could do, however, is understand how we would grapple with the notion that we could not gather, that we could not go to our places of business, that our customer base would disappear. There's any number of things that could have caused those things. COVID-19 is the one that caused it this time and caused a lot of things to happen all at once. But how you would create these contingency plans so that you could be prepared for anything instead of everything is really the crux of what the book talks about. How you can create generalized solutions to what are essentially the symptoms of the issue as opposed to the causes.
And today is one example of that, because just yesterday you emailed me and you said, Joe, we need to have a contingency plan because storms are expected in Long Island, we may lose power, etc. So even from the standpoint of an interview, you were thinking ahead. Have you trained your brain to do that over the years?
I think it's my background as a student scientist. I have a degree in biology. I didn't start in the business world, and it was that level of inquiry and that level of making sure you always had a solution to a problem, or that you were always thinking ahead about what a problem might be and how you were going to go about solving it. In the business world, that became a really important part of my life and my career and my jobs, especially when you deal with, in my particular case, large numbers of people being gathered in one place at one time, whether it's the Super Bowl or whether it was an NHL hockey game. You were gathering tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of people in one place, and you better be thinking about contingencies, because your main role is not really about entertaining them. Your main role is keeping them safe and making sure nothing awful happens. And secondarily, you want to entertain them. So whenever you gather a large numbers of people together, that's at the core of it. And as long as you continue to peel back the onion and understand what the core of your mission is for any project or even personal pursuit, the greater chance you have of being able to plan against things that might go wrong.
Interesting. I have a friend, Jerry Reynolds, who's in charge of events in the city of Inverness up in the Highlands. And he says his main objective is to make sure everybody gets home okay.
That's right.
You know, everything else is secondary. You mentioned just a minute ago that problems do not follow patterns, but solutions do. So I was wondering if you could provide an example of a time when you wish you actually knew more about a situation or a problem. For example, when you produced the Super Bowl halftime show with 88 grand pianos on the field, and the groundsman didn't like that idea of
Yeah.
you upsetting their turf. Tell me about a story like that.
Yeah, I'd love to say that I produced it. I was the associate producer. I was the number 2 guy, not the number 1 guy. It was really somebody else's idea, and it was brilliant. Um, I think what it comes down to is knowing what you don't know, and finding the answers. I'm going to go back a step and talk about when I got to the National Hockey League. I was an ice hockey fan. I loved the sport. I loved watching it. And when I started to work for the NHL, I thought I knew everything there was to know about hockey because I was a fan, after all. And I knew the rosters of several teams, and I had favorite players and favorite teams as well. And when you're on the inside of that, you don't know what you don't know. And frankly, I thought I knew more than I did. One of the most embarrassing moments I had, which was provided courtesy of somebody who really wanted me to look bad, was when I was in Montreal, and I was in a big meeting of people with the Montreal Canadiens. We were getting ready to produce the All-Star game there in 1993. And I talked about how important it was to embrace the history of this incredible hockey team cup, the championship 24 times in 75 years. And he said, well, you should definitely get Jacques Plante to be the goaltender of this alumni game. And I said, great idea. Let's do that. Make sure you get me his name and number. Now, everybody in the room but me knew that Jacques Plante had been dead for 25 years. I just made believe that I knew what he was talking about. It was much more important, and it would have been more important, and I would have been much more authentic if I said, tell me a little bit more about Jacques Plante. But I didn't. And there was a lot of learning about being very true to what you don't know, and letting people know that you don't know everything. When I got to the National Football League, and I was a football fan too, I approached a mentor right away, and who was a Hall of Fame coach, worked in the office. His name was Art Shell. His name is still Art Shell. And I said, look, tell me what I need to know about the turf. Tell me what I need to know about the game, the culture of the game, the way the players experience the game, the way management experiences the game. Because I'm gonna come back to you time after time and get your guidance and make sure it's authentic. And later I went on to under Fast Traffic to produce the pre-race show at the Indy 500. It's a 350,000 people on a normal year, and in one place at one time. I didn't know very much events in the world. So I did the same thing. I found a mentor, series of mentors, ran everything by them, and started every conversation with, forgive my ignorance, but does this make sense? So, knowing what you don't know and being really genuine about it is really a huge advantage.
I wonder, Frank, if that has something to do with maturity, because when we were young men, we might have assumed we knew it all. But as you get older, I think the 3 most powerful words in terms of keeping you out of trouble, as you've just suggested, are I don't know.
Yeah,
Having
I
the
think that's
confidence.
right. Yeah, I think, you know, you build your confidence in yourself builds, I hope, as you walk through life. And being able to admit that you don't know something is really very powerful, and I think, you know, endearing in some cases to the people who do know.
So during your long and successful career, I wonder, Frank, how has faith impacted your decisions, personal and professional? You've worked all over the world, London, the United States, other places. There are different ethical, moral conditions in different places. How has faith guided you in terms of your personal and your professional decisions?
Well, they're the ethical guardrails that you use to be able to define the path forward. And you're right, every culture is different. Every culture has different ways of conducting business and doing things. I think what what faith has taught me is the notion of being open to other people's ideas, to being able to see the world, you know, through the lens of an ethical perspective. That you know what's right. You know what's right in terms of moving forward, and it's also tolerance. I think what faith teaches us at its best is tolerating other people's cultures, and in fact celebrating some of those cultures as well, especially when you're in a different place. You know, it's not all about you. It's never been about you. It's about, you know, the world. It's about all of the people in it, and it's about the people that you're trying to communicate with and talk to and entertain. I think faith teaches us, it certainly has taught me, to be open and tolerant, and you know, treat people with the respect that they merit and deserve.
Interesting. In our Jewish tradition, the prophet Hillel, of course, is famous for saying, "Do not do unto others what you do not want them to do unto you," which, of course, became later the golden rule, do unto others.
Yes, yes.
So I completely agree with what you're saying. Now, I understand there's at least one more book in you. Tell me what the next book might be about.
Well, the next book is really exciting. It's not yet sold to a publisher, but it's in development, and it's about. It was really inspired by what we're enduring now as people, which is the notion that we're being driven apart, that you know, we're always trying to come back together. I mentioned earlier that people are social animals. That's how we advanced into bands and tribes, and ultimately civilizations, cultures, and nations. And it's really about how gatherings, particularly in the United States, and it is focused on the United States, help define the nation, help define our culture, help people stay together and keep together. Everything from the golden age of sports in the 1920s, that were really launched in the wake of the 1919 Spanish flu pandemic, to how people gathered when they had no money during the Great Depression, to how they came back together after the Second World War. If you think about what our natural reaction to world events are, it's to gather, whether it's to gather to console one another or to celebrate. After the end of World War II in the United States, you know, one of the most famous photographs in the world are the crowds of people who left their offices to go into Times Square, and there's a sailor and a nurse embracing and kissing. Those two people didn't know each other. All of the people who gathered in Times Square didn't go to work that day saying there's a rally in Times Square. They just came together because that's what people want to do. They want to gather. And we've been robbed of some of that during COVID-19. What's really remarkable is how we continue to gather together online, on Zoom, on Facebook, on social media, and we have that outlet, but there's really nothing like the real thing. And I know we're all looking forward to that. And the book explores the history of great gatherings, whether they are sports events or parades or spontaneous demonstrations, major sports festivals, major music festivals, how they've helped define us.
You know, there's a video that I've seen about the 1964 World's Fair in Flushing Meadows, and the closing line, narrated by Judd Hirsch, is about, while people might remember the Unisphere, they might remember the different pavilions, what they'll really remember is that first taste of that hot dog, or kissing a girl by the fountain who later became your wife. So it's, as you say, those human encounters that we cherish for the rest of our lives. It's funny you mentioned the word gathering, Frank. I wonder if the Scots had any influence in America with that, because in Scotland, the word gathering is a very hallowed word. It's used to reflect events. So when we have an event here, it's called a gathering. We simply gather together a group of people for a common purpose, quite naturally. So I understand also that you're getting ready to teach your first college course. So Professor Supovitz, tell me what you hope to impart to your students in terms of your philosophy of events based upon the books you've written, the career that you've had.
The course is at Adelphi University, and it's on event sponsorship. It's the first of what I hope will be a series of courses that I'm given the opportunity to teach. And I'm really excited about it, because what's really important is when we talk to students that we give them theory, but we give them real life application to the theory. What concerned me a little bit when I first saw the syllabus that had been put together, perhaps a half a dozen years ago, is it was very theoretical, and there was no grounding in what it really means and how you put those things together in real life. I think that the fact that I'm a practitioner as well as a theoretician is an important part of what the learning experience will teach it. One of the things I'm going to do is make sure that every class starts with a story of the class, of something that's happening right now, a trend, a sponsorship program, an event that's being created, so that we can dissect what's happening in the world today. Because I think everything that you learn in the classroom, if you can create a real life example of how that unfolds in business, in industry, or even personally, I think that creates lessons that people learn and remember.
Well, how lucky your students are to have you, Professor Supovitz, at the front of their classroom this autumn during a very difficult time in their lives. I just want to close this interview by asking you a personal question I've never asked you before, but you've written this wonderful book, When Things Go Wrong, What Do You Do? In your personal life, in my own personal life, whether it be long marriage of 40 plus years, children, now grandchildren, when things go wrong, we talk about it and we try to solve these problems together. How about you in your personal life? How do you apply this book, this philosophy to your life as a husband, as a father, and now as a grandfather?
Boy, what a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. It's an overall philosophy on how you approach life, and that is to not count on everything going right. How do you deal with financial issues? We're enduring that right now. It doesn't take very much to have to make some really hard decisions. When we in New York, in particular, where I am, we were faced with the odd distinction of being the epicenter of COVID-19 infection, hospitalizations, intubations, and fatalities, not only in the country but in the world. And we had to make some very hard decisions as a family. Yes, I have kids who live here. I have kids who don't, and I have a granddaughter, and I love to see them all the time. One of the hardest things I think we had to deal with as a family, because it was, you know, you have to just go back to what your overall philosophy is, and it's true in the book too, is, you know, safety is non-negotiable, health is non-negotiable. Whatever you want to do in whatever you're planning, whether it's a project or a personal endeavor, you know, health and safety comes first, everything else is secondary. So you know, we didn't see our granddaughter, you know, for 4 months. We're seeing them now, but we're seeing them in my backyard. We sit at different tables. You know, we cook a meal outdoors, and you know, and serve them in one place, and we go to another, and we have to wear masks, and you know, all of that is very, very tough. But that's how our entire family, you know, deals with those kinds of challenges. As much as I'd love to hug and kiss my 4-year-old granddaughter, I know that for her safety and for the safety of all of us, you know, we have to stay separate for now.
Well, thank you, Frank. I cannot think, dear friends, of a better book for these unprecedented times than What to Do When Things Go Wrong by Frank Supovitz. Whether you are in business or you are in the business of life, applying these classic, inspiring values to your own life will create a much rewarding future for all of us. Frank, it's been a great pleasure having you on Spotlight on Faith today, and I wish you and your family good luck, and I hope, like me, you too get to soon hug your grandchild.
Amen. Thank you.
Cheers.